So if you've been watching politics lately, or if you've been watching people use the Bible to condemn, shame, hate, and dehumanize others, this series is probably for you. So why don't we follow along and tell me in the comments below, have you ever seen scripture used as a weapon? I consider myself a devout Christian, but probably not in the same way that a lot of people expect me to say that. Because to me, Jesus Christ was not just someone to worship, he was a blueprint. He came to show us the path of Christ. I call that Christ consciousness. I've heard it called the Christ avatar state. It's a way of being that does not lead into hate, violence, cruelty, or spiritual superiority, but into love, mercy, compassion, truth, and alignment with God. And that is exactly why this conversation matters. Because I'm tired of watching people use the Bible like a weapon and then call it love. One of the biggest ways I see people do this most often is with one word, especially in June: pride. People love to say pride is a sin, but what they are usually doing is collapsing two completely different meanings into one word. Because yes, there is a kind of pride that is dangerous. The kind that says, I'm better than you, I'm above correction, I'm more righteous than you, I get to decide who belongs and who doesn't. That kind of pride is not healthy. That is arrogance and ego and spiritual supremacy. That is the kind of pride that separates people from humility, compassion, and truth. And when Christians say pride is why Satan fell, this is usually the kind of pride they mean. Not self-worth, dignity, or survival, but self-exaltation. The desire to place yourself above God, to become your own idol, and to be so untouchable and more important than love itself. That's a very different thing than a human being saying, I survived, I mattered, I deserve dignity, and I will not hate myself anymore. Those are not the same word in the same spiritual universe. But there is another kind of pride. And honestly, I think a lot of people already know that. They just stop being honest in the conversation when it becomes uncomfortable for them. There's also healthy pride. The pride of a parent watching their child thrive, of watching someone rebuild after trauma or surviving depression. The pride of leaving abuse and finally saying, I'm not ashamed of who I am anymore. That is not rebellion against God. That's healing and dignity. That is the soul picking itself back up off the floor. And when people weaponize the word pride against entire groups of people, especially the LGBTQIA+ community, what they are often condemning is not arrogance, it's visibility, dignity, and people refusing to disappear to make others feel comfortable. And that matters, because there's a huge difference between saying I am better than everyone else and saying I deserve to exist without shame. There's a huge difference between domination and dignity, between ego and wholeness, and between superiority and self-acceptance. So when someone throws around the phrase pride is a sin without any nuance, what they're often doing is taking a complex spiritual idea and flattening it into a tool of shame. And shame has been one of religion's favorite weapons for a very long time. And before anyone says, well, I'm just quoting scripture, I need us to remember something very important. Even Satan quotes scripture. This is not me being dramatic. This is literally in the Bible. In Matthew chapter 4, during the temptation of Jesus, the devil quotes scripture, which means quoting scripture is not the same thing as embodying God. Just because someone can cite a verse does not mean they are walking in the Spirit of Christ. Sometimes it means they found holy words and then put them into unholy hands and unholy tongues. And that really should wake people up, because a verse by itself is not proof of love. It's not proof of wisdom or spiritual maturity, and it's definitely not proof that someone is using the Bible correctly. The Bible can be sacred. It can be healing and have wisdom and guidance, but it can also be misused. It can be turned into a blade, a threat, a performance of superiority, a reason to shame, exclude, or scare people. And when that happens, I do not believe we are seeing the heart of Christ. Because the Christ path does not produce hatred. It does not produce spiritual bullying or carry cruelty with a halo over it. The Christ path produces love, mercy, humility, compassion, good fruit. And if someone's theology consistently produces shame, fear, contempt, and exclusion, I think it might be fair to ask, is that Christ? Or is that just your ego wearing a spiritual costume? So no, I don't think dignity is the same thing as arrogance. And I do not believe shame comes from the voice of God. I believe Jesus came as a blueprint. And the Christ blueprint is not about making people smaller so religion can feel bigger. It is not about condemning people for being different or using shame to force conformity. It's about love. And if your version of Christianity needs humiliation in order to feel holy, then maybe you're not protecting holiness. Maybe you're just protecting control. So, that's part 1. For the next video, we're going to jump into Mosaic Law. Yay! Leviticus, Acts chapter 15. And if you think Leviticus still applies, are you following all the rules? And then tell me in the comments below, what is the difference between healthy pride and spiritual arrogance? Follow along for more.